marketing campaigns. That's actually why I was hired, to help bridge some of the gaps within the Latinx Hispanic market. And it just sparked an excitement in me. It was the first time in my life that I was really good at something. It is a love story, if you will, about how I built my career, starting from when I was a child. Not that I started working officially as a child, but a lot of the habits and my background and how it all came together to create this career. You need to know your why. And we hear that a lot in entrepreneurship, and it sounds so corny, but it's really important, because when the going gets tough, and it will, no matter what you're doing, you need to bring it back to, okay, why am I creating this? And it's got to be a whole lot more than revenue, because I can tell you, having worked with several very successful people and striving to be successful myself, I can tell you that when the revenue comes, that is not going to equal happiness. That is not going to equal fulfillment. That is not going to serve your purpose.
What's up, everybody? This is Simon. On this episode of The Ideal Hour, I have Ella Parlor, who is a seasoned sales and marketing professional, business strategist. She's worked with top brands, including the NFL, the NBA. She's an author. She did stand-up comedy. She moved to Texas to find a husband. I don't know if she found one. We're going to get to the bottom of all of this. And Ella, thanks for coming on. I really appreciate it.
You really dug deep into the archive there. How did you hear about the stand-up comedy? I'm very impressed with your team.
We work hard to find out the good stuff. So that's our goal, is to bring out the best of everybody and the best stuff that we could find. We don't look for the bad stuff. So hopefully there is none, but we look for the good stuff. And tell me about it. Stand-up comedy, why? And were you like nervous, or how did it go?
I will clarify. I have done 2 stand-up comedy shows. I did one back in 2011 and then another one last year. And the first show I did, quite frankly, my motivation was because it was a stand-up competition and there were no females in it. And I just thought that was so obnoxious. And so I was like, well, I will just represent for the women, into the chip on my shoulder about being the only female amongst the sea of men, and my background there. But I did it, and what I didn't expect was I ended up winning the competition. I thought for sure I'd probably get booed or, whatever. I just got up there and started talking about my train wreck of a dating life, and I ended up winning. And it was a really great experience, and I thought, all right, I better quit while I'm ahead. I'll be the only comedian in history to not be heckled. And then last year, went back on stage, really because, and this is something that I would say to any business leader, stand-up comedy is one of the most challenging types of speech there is. And if you can find a way to get a grip on both finding the humor in whatever subject matter that you're talking about, but also being able to work with feedback from the crowd, it's extremely challenging. But as business leaders, I would say that all business leaders should take the time to take an improv class, involve themselves in some type of comedic outlet, because I think that it will help you show up better in whatever public speaking that you do have to do, right? Whether you're pitching to investors or working with the board or working with the media, whatever it may be. If you're a business leader, the fact is that you have to be agile, you have to be quick in your communication, and stand-up comedy is a really great way to get there. So full disclosure, I've only done 2 shows. They were both okay. The first was a roaring success, and I think I'm okay with retiring on that laurel.
That's awesome. I love it. It's crazy that you went back for the second time and you weren't one and done with a chip on, winning a chip. But I think you're right. If you can make people laugh in a room or feel comfortable or feel entertained, they're going to listen to you. And whether you're pitching them on an idea or a story about dating, if you could get their attention, that's huge. And it's almost like a stress test, right? Would you say it's a little bit of a stress test where you're presenting in front of them and so forth, and they're either laughing or not, and you could pick it up. So if you could master that or be good at that, you could pretty much talk anywhere at any time, I think.
But really challenging yourself to go outside of your comfort zone, because when you're in business, you learn pretty quickly. And I deal with this with some of the business owners that I've had the opportunity to work with, is that they don't expect how much networking that they're going to have to do. Nowadays, people don't buy brands, they buy the brand story. And a part of that brand story, if you're creating a business, is going to include your face. So getting owners comfortable with being in front of people, even if it's not consumer or public facing, whether it's your distributor partners or retailer partners, whatever your outlets are, your face is going to be a big part of the brand for a very long time, even for big billion-dollar companies. We know that the founders and CEOs are the face of the brand. So being able to stretch, I think, I love what you said about stress tests. I'm all about those. Anyone who's worked with me would say that I'm big on the stress test. Let's reach beyond, because that's where innovation is made. Get into an improv class, make fun of yourself. Do not take yourself so seriously. I think that's another thing that we all do, is we get so wrapped up in the P&L and the bottom line. It's like, no, let's have fun. It should be about having fun, ultimately.
I agreed. I think, and when you have fun, you just feel better and you produce better. So you are a founding partner of EP Consulting at 1 billion plus in revenue from client brands, which is incredible. Tell me what got you into that space, why marketing, I should say, and why having a marketing consulting company?
Very fortunate. I'm such a believer that luck is where preparation meets opportunity. So when I was an undergrad, I was studying to be a doctor. I was pre-med, and that's kind of what my focus was. But ultimately, I ended up getting recruited by a little known company known as Red Bull. And at this time, back in the 2000s, when I was hired, they were not the marketing powerhouse that we know today. They had only been in North America for exactly 9 years. At the time, they only had 4 SKUs, 2 flavors, 2 sizes. That was it. And so I was onboarded during a time where they started driving more innovation, driving more multicultural marketing campaigns. That's actually why I was hired, to help bridge some of the gaps within the Latinx Hispanic market. And it just sparked an excitement in me. It was the first time in my life that I was really good at something. And at the age of 19 years old, I ideated my first campaign that got scaled nationally. That's cool. And so because of the visibility, and I do feel the need to offer this, we'll say, privilege, growing up in Southern California, which is a business hub, marketing hub globally. And what that means is that I was rubbing elbows, whether I knew it or not at the time, with various executives throughout my career. I've had high visibility because I'm working activations in my market, and these activations include Coachella, the Grammys, Oscars, and so forth. And so where those type of large scale activations happen, of course, the executives follow. And it really was a little bit of a big part of luck. I didn't know what marketing was when I started at Red Bull. I didn't know what that was. And I would argue that a lot of people use that word today in various marketing buzzwords with no real grasp of the strategies and terminologies and, quite frankly, psychology behind a lot of it. So it's I did get lucky there, but I would say to anyone, when you find something that really sparks a passion in you, you just got to take it and run.
Let me ask you, did drinking Red Bull help with keeping up with deadlines and so forth?
Because I'm pretty far removed. That was a lifetime ago that I worked there. But I will tell you that when they interviewed, one of the first questions they ask you is, would you like a Red Bull? And if you said no, you didn't get the job. And so I said, wait, I could really have one? Like, that was my silly, teenager. I was like, come with me? Like, I was that dork, because I actually love the product. And to this day, any big day, any big moment, any big speech, any public speaking I do, always includes a Red Bull 8.4 ounce sugar-free. It is my ritual. It is my need. There was one time where I had to do a speech and unfortunately the assistant forgot my Red Bull and I kind of threw a fit. I was like, I need to go run to the hotel next door because that's my ritual. I need my Red Bull sugar-free 8.4 ounce.
It brings you back to the good old days, I bet. No, that's great. And, you know, that's such a like bubbly, fun response. First, you know, I think they love that. And I know marketing to some extent, and I love to see that energy out of people when we interview. So I think that actually helped where you're like, wait a minute, can I have that, you know, that smile and everything works. All right. Let's talk about, you're also an author of a book called High Tolerance: From Cheers to Consequences Inside the Intoxicating World of Alcohol Advertising. What is that about? And it's a great title.
Yeah, so High Tolerance is about, it really was positioned to answer two questions that I've received a lot in my career that I haven't been able to answer. As you can probably already tell, I'm pretty long-winded. So it was my way of just saying, all right, these are the answers to these two questions I get, which are, one, what do you do? I get that question a lot because people see that I'm traveling the world and I'm going to these events and I'm with these different celebrities and athletes and going to all these really cool things. But it's like, okay, but what do you actually do? What do you do? And then the second question is, once I answer what I do, it's how did you get that job? How did that happen? Well, it's not something that happens overnight. It's not something that just falls into your lap. There were years of preparation. And so it is a love story, if you will, about how I built my career starting from when I was a child. Not that I started working officially as a child, but a lot of the habits and my background and how it all came together to create this career. And it's not something that I could offer to anybody. And so that's where I was like, let me just write a book. But unexpectedly, the reaction has been, and it surprises me because of my career in alcohol marketing, that the cover of the book has a photo of me with a martini in hand. And so to me, it's very clearly an adult book, not that kind of adult book, but adult oriented book, just because of the nature of alcohol and marketing and talking about that. But unexpectedly, some of the feedback that I've received is adults giving it to their younger female, student daughters, so daughters in high school and college, really as a beacon of hope for women in business, especially women in a male-dominated segment like alcohol, which permeates into the sports space, and that's why I've been able to work with so many sports franchises.
I think that's wonderful, and I love the fact that you're able to bring together a few generations into something that they could share. But also, alcohol is such a big thing nowadays. I mean, it was always a big thing, but the consumption of it, the way it's marketed, the advertising part of it, the age limits, it's a whole different animal, and the rules and regulations about it, it's crazy. It's like you can literally sell drugs down the street, but if you sell alcohol, the ATF is gonna really know. It's such a regulated industry. And I had a friend that had done something with alcohol. They had a really cool vodka brand before, and because they didn't declare something, they were in trouble. A side story, but let's continue with this. You also have a podcast. You're like this interesting person that does a lot of things. And you also mentioned earlier in the podcast that you were in LA. This kind of helped your business. Why did you move to Texas if LA is such a good potential hub for mingling and going to the Grammys and Coachella and all these places where you can meet and do marketing, right?
You want to say, revisiting what you said about your friend, you just got me hot and heavy saying ATF. I was like, whoo, he's speaking my language now. But I talk about the ATF like in chapter 1 of my book because I nerd out on some of I talk about the different government entities that I've had to work with through my work. But what I would say is one of the many reasons why I wrote my book and started my business is because so many people want to get into the alcohol game, but there's so much they don't know. They have to understand that this is one of the oldest, if not the oldest industry in the United States, outside of publishing, which is also a very old industry in the United States. We have not one, but two amendments in the Constitution related to alcohol. So people try to get in the game. You have celebrities. I've worked with several celebrities and their brands. They're like, oh, I want to start a vodka or champagne brand. It's like, no, there are rules, and there are rules to this game. While it looks really fun and sexy on the outside, I wrote the book really as a way to go, hey, before you get into the game, like, here are some things you might want to consider, especially on the consumption side, right? Being responsible about how we approach it. So I would say that for people who want to get into that, like, one, hire a really good attorney, but two, if you don't know how to do that, that's where my business can come in and say, all right, let's look at how you're strategizing and setting up your business so you don't get yourself into a legal bind, and then end up having to dissolve your business because of the fines and the astronomical fees that come with making any mistakes in such a regulated area.
It's very regulated. And to your point, you're absolutely right. Very, very regulated with huge fines and fees. It's just the same. I mean, it's ATF, alcohol, tobacco, and firearms, and they're all on the same level of importance to the government because of money and who has created these entities. So Yep. So if I don't know how Ciroc vodka or Casamigos tequila is doing, but it's not easy to enter. And I'm glad. So your company would consult individuals that would consider it. Is that correct?
Say Casamigos and Ciroc, just so you know, they're owned by the same parent company, Diageo. They're the largest alcohol spirit company in the world. They actually own Louis Vuitton, but that's a whole piece of Louis Vuitton, a whole nother rabbit hole we could go down when we start talking about conglomerate.
LVMH owned all of them?
Stands for Louis Vuitton Moet Hennessy, and Diageo owns a very small stake in their competitor, which is Louis Vuitton Moet Hennessy. So it's very interesting when you start knowing the cyclical business, and that little tidbit that I just gave you really matters to the markets like Alabama and Mississippi, who are wondering, why am I selling both of these competitive brands? Well, that's because in Europe, they are friendly companies. So it's a very convoluted space, and for where I can help and where I've really found my niche is working with smaller alcohol brands who have really put themselves into a mess and they don't know why. So I've worked with 3 of the largest alcohol conglomerates in the world. I've had access to millions of dollars of both marketing budgets, sales force, operational systems, and so forth, technologies. And so with having that vantage point, I could take a lot of the information that I've gleaned and really disseminate it to a company and say, okay, you guys are overinvested on this front. Let's pull that back. Let's pull back your sales force. Let's up your sales force and really make it tailored and customized to their particular target demographic and category. How I would market a vodka is so different than how I'm going to market a whiskey or a cognac or a tequila or a champagne. All of these various factors, the law being a big part of it, are going to affect how I approach getting that bottle into more hands. So I think that that's where boutique consultancies just such as mine can offer that. And I'm so big on, don't try to reinvent the wheel, not when you're in a regulated space. Lean on the experts. And my book really offers a lot of this information. But if you don't want to read the book, then you can take the time to work with me directly.
You should read the book. But as far as marketing, let's say someone's listening on the podcast that is interested in, say, alcohol marketing, or it could be any other product out there. It's all tailored. What are some of the things they should know, or like, what are some of the pieces of small advice you would recommend to someone starting out to be somewhat successful or successful in their first go round to present their product, whether it's alcohol or not?
I would say it's twofold, right? So one, when you're creating something and you're alone in your room, whatever it is, you got to come up with your mission and values. And while it might change because someone like me will come in and say, yeah, we don't like those missions, we're never going to change that, you need to know your why. And we hear that a lot in entrepreneurship, and it sounds so corny, but it's really important, because when the going gets tough, and it will, no matter what you're doing, you need to bring it back to, okay, why am I creating this? And it's got to be a whole lot more than revenue, because I can tell you, having worked with several very successful people and striving to be successful myself, I can tell you that when the revenue comes, that is not going to equal happiness. That is not going to equal fulfillment. That is not going to serve your purpose. It will check a box and it can help get you there, but you need to know what your mission is and making sure that it aligns with your purpose. And if you haven't figured that out yet, going into business is going to highlight that very quickly. Your messaging is going to be confusing. You're going to be all over the place, and you will not attract the target audience, and especially niche audience that you're hoping to attract. So get real on what your why is. And unfortunately, that's pretty hard. So that's one of the things that I do with brand owners when I'm working with them. It's like, all right, take off your shoes, pull down your hair, loosen up the tie. Why the blank did you do this? Why are you here? Because if it was just for the money, I could tell you you're about to put yourself in a really big hole, because wanting money cannot be the reason why you get into business. You need to be serving a purpose and serving an audience, and quite frankly, making the world a better place. So I think that that's where we'll see success in businesses. Now, when we start talking about external marketing, right, like how we're presenting ourselves to investors, which I love investor meetings. I just think they're so fun. Again, I thrive being the only female in a room full of boys. So
they're probably happy to see you, to be honest with you. I'm sure they're, they don't, I mean, I would be, in terms of a room full of guys and there's a good energy woman there. It lightens up the room. I don't know. I will be honest.
I think that I try to be a breath of fresh air, if you will. And I think that it's so controversial to say today. God forbid we admit that there's a difference between being a man and being a woman, but there is. And I think that there is a purpose and a beauty in both men and women. And one strength that a woman can bring to the room is delivery. We are able to deliver a message in a particular way that might resonate a little bit more. And so being able to articulate or break it down, be appealing, whatever that might be. So I would hope that for me, I see it as a strength. You know, I think that we sometimes as women, again, it's hard when you're the only woman in a room. I've been the only female in a room with 200 men. And I walked away from I was presenting. So I was on the stage and I felt like a piece of meat, not because anybody treated me that way, but whether men realize it or not, we as women are hyper aware of our lack of physical strength. I'm a trained fighter with plenty of people, but I'm also hyper aware of my limitations as a female. And so you would think, why am I thinking of this in a business space? Because in the back of my head as a woman, I know that if at any time this group of men, you know, want to attack me, like there's always that hyper awareness. Now, whether that's socialized, whether that's innate in us, but I walked away from that meeting and overall it was a great presentation. I did a sales training. My boss was like, well, how do you think it went? And I was like, well, I was uncomfortable. I felt like a piece of meat the whole time. And he critiqued me for that. He's like, you need to change your mentality. Stop being woe is me. And nobody treated you like a piece of meat. And I'm like, you just don't understand.
I think women add a great balance to any room, and they're a pleasure to hear their perspective and so forth. And I think especially in marketing, it's a necessity. Ladies are creative. They bring a different perspective. You're 50% of the population. So I imagine companies would say, wait a minute, what is the other 50% thinking? In fact, more than 50%, 51, I think, which is a big number. I'm impressed. But you also mentioned that you're a trained fighter. So if one of them got out of control, what does that mean to you or them?
Viral like this morning of a woman putting a man in a chokehold because he did something he shouldn't have done. I won't get into it, but he did something he shouldn't have done. She said, you picked the wrong one. And I do have my dad. I always say I'm the son my dad never had, but don't tell my brother that. I was the firstborn, and my dad really, really, really wanted a boy. He gave me a boy's name, Mikey. So I was 12 years old. I realized Mikey's a boy's name. Wait, what? I thought that was a girl's name. So then I changed it to Ella at 12, 13 years old because I was so upset that I had a boy's name this whole time. But my dad really wanted a boy. So he was trying everything he could to make me the little man that he really wanted. And that included, I started training in various mixed martial arts starting at 4 years old. You had guys who hadn't trained. And I was competing, I was getting gold medals, I was doing really, really well. I was always competing with men because there weren't really females to compete with. 16, 17, you have guys who are significantly less experienced than I am, and one hit, I'm out. One hit, you know, and I'm 16. I want to look cute at homecoming, but I got a split lip and I'm really bitter. And I was just like, I hate this sport. There are no girls here. I can't invite my friends to come to this. I'm done. And so I think that that's where I say I'm hyper aware of my limitations as a woman. I can be as trained as I want. You could take the strongest, fastest, most amazing soldier of a woman, and she will tell you, yes, I can anticipate what you're going to do by the movement of your body. But if you get me, if you grab me, it's over. And have this balance of knowing that, yes, maybe I can take someone. I still try to train. And
how society, like one thing, because you're obviously a strong woman that is proud to be a woman, to be in a room and handle stuff and get things done. And you were raised, let's say, a little boyish up to a certain age and so forth, which is cool because you understand boys or men at a certain part of it. But it's interesting how society, with so much progress for women and independence and uniqueness and just letting them shine, not only in the workforce, but also everywhere else, to compete with men, kind of went back on the whole men competing in women's sports and just dominating, right? They're not like, I mean, I've read an article one time where Serena Williams, who's a great tennis player, a great female, one of the best, maybe the best in the world, female tennis player, but she like played a 200th ranked men player, and she, I believe, lost to him. And it's just the physicality is so different. And that's why you don't see it reversed in sports nowadays, where the female enters a men's league and really, you know, it just doesn't work, right? LeBron James is going to dunk on pretty much anybody out there. It's fascinating how it's no longer acknowledged in today's marketing, in today's world, and in today's sports. And I've seen it even in mixed martial arts, where it just doesn't work well, as to where the man who's now a woman completely knocks out the woman, and like it looks like murder. And you're right. And I've trained in several martial arts. There's definitely people or women that are capable of taking on a man, but in reality, the physicality is so much different. And I think women should acknowledge that. I think it's when someone comes in and you're in college and you worked your butt off as a female to swim and get there, and your parents are proud, and some dude comes out of nowhere that never ranked anywhere, and all of a sudden he dominates, and he's not even half good because of his strength capability. It's not fair. And if I have daughters, and if my daughters had to compete with someone like that, I'd be pissed. So, you know, and I'm being honest, and I know it's tough to say nowadays, but it's just so crazy. And I think you agree.
yeah, I always say, outside of my coercion from my beautiful father, who I love, it was my choice to be competing with men, right? And I say my choice because I just didn't have options with women. I am trying to sit out on the trans conversation for so many reasons. I'm from Southern California. I love my background is in human sexuality. Like I said, I was pre-med, right? So my background was in human sexuality and sexual studies in college. And there were a lot of things that I was doing 10 years ago to advocate for the rights for trans people just to not get murdered, and to be accepted as human beings. And I think the narrative has really has changed a bit in the last 10 years. And I'll be honest, I just don't feel eloquent or articulate enough to say. All I can share is my experiences, right? So I have a taste, a very small taste of trans, we'll say, experiences as a girl, a cisgendered woman who was named Mikey, right? I named a boy's name, and then I changed my name. My family did not like that. It was not an easy change, just changing my name. And I never asked anybody to stop calling me Mikey. I just started going by Ella. And just that identity shift was tremendous. So I have, when we talk about identities and all that, not trying to go down that road, positivity, because I know what it's like to go, okay, I get that you decided that I'm this, but I taught anybody who meets me, like, I'm Ella. I am Ella. It makes sense. And I was 13 when I made this huge change, but that's who I am. I'm Ella. That's what people call me. That's what I'm known as. That's my legal name. Like, I made this change. Most people don't change their names the same way most people don't change their gender, but I was always Ella. I was always Ella. My parents just didn't know it. But also, like, exactly, I'm also a female who trained and competed with men. And so I feel very, I just feel like it's not my stage. It's not my place. All I can do is try to treat people kindly. And again, going back to being a woman in today's world, where I'm seeing a little bit of a shift, is that, and I think it's unfortunate, and I think it's to the detriment of all of us, it's doing a disservice, is that we are so focused on women empowerment that I think we're trying to disenfranchise men, and that's not right either. I'm like, oh my God, y'all are going to make me like the new advocate, the new chauvinist, the face of chauvinism. Like, give men a chance, you know? I don't want a world where there's inequity on either side.
I think men are still needed, and so are women. You know, that's the point of it. It's like, which I have nothing against trans people or gay people or I don't care what you do. It doesn't bother me at all. Like, I have friends that are gay. I have friends that are not gay. I don't judge. Whatever you do to make you feel good, as long as you're not harming anybody, that's my goal. And that's the type of people I want to be, positive people around. And there are positive and negative people in all spectrums, right? All races, all religions, all ideologies, and so forth. But the component of strength is definitely there in regards to athletic competition. Whether a trans person can create a better ad for a company, that's irrelevant, right? I think they can or they cannot. It doesn't matter. There's no, you know, I wouldn't say that you can equate the two, but when it comes to like powerlifting or something like this, you're going to beat out a woman, sadly, in most cases. I would say pretty much in all cases, if you are a man. And it's just the way the biological, you know, adaptation has happened. And it's gotten to the point where I feel like it's unrealistic. And I don't know what the solution is, but it's just kind of weird. And to me, it's like a different game. But let's get off that before we get canceled.
Well, this is a perfect segue to the previous question you asked, which is, why did I move from Los Angeles to Texas? Yeah. You know, I won't bring politics into it, just for the sake of not tanking this podcast completely for you. Environment opportunities are moving to Texas, right? It was a strategic move, more strategic than I think people will give me credit for, perhaps. But when I made the decision to move, quite frankly, on the note of being a biological woman and knowing that I have this clock that is ticking, and that, unlike my male counterparts, I don't have the luxury of knocking someone up at 80. Like, you know, we got Al Pacino.
We could talk about Al Pacino. That was nuts. This guy, he's going to see the baby. If he lives 5 years, he's going to see the baby for 5 years. This is crazy. But I agree with you. Biological clock is a big thing. And because women are in the workforce nowadays, they often push that part of who they can become a little bit further. So tell me about it. So you moved to meet a man.
For a husband. I didn't have a job. So I told my family, I was like, I'm moving to Texas. I'm moving. I found out I was getting laid off from a company. Okay. And they had an office in Texas, so there was a little bit of negotiating there. But technically, right, like my role was being dissolved and eliminated. And I was like, I'm going to move to Texas. And my family's like, do you know anybody there? No. Do you have a job offer there? no. Okay, why? And I was like, because I want to find a husband. I don't think I'm gonna find him here in SoCal. No offense to SoCal, but like if anyone can find me an amazing man who's single that I should have stayed there for, he didn't find me. He had 30 years to find me and he didn't. So I was like, I gotta get out of here. So I went to a bunch of cities around the country and I went on Bumble at the airport. This was how I gauged. So I go to Miami and I land at baggage claim. I got like 22 matches and I'm like, oh, that's nice. And I go to DC and I have like 12 matches. And I go to Chicago, I got like 18 matches. When I come back home to LAX, I have like 21 matches. And when I landed at DFW, Dallas Fort Worth Airport, at baggage claim, I'm standing there opening my Bumble app and I had over 200 matches. And I thought, oh, this is home. This is home. This is it. The odds are in my favor. Tell my family this. They thought I was having a mental breakdown.
Because you were overwhelmed with 200 matches, or because you what's
who drops their life to pursue their love life, right? Who leaves it all behind? And what I told my family was, I can always get a job. At this point, my business was kind of unofficial. I was doing a sole proprietor, like it wasn't the LLC it is today. This was a few years ago. And who does that? Most people move for a job, for college, for not to find a spouse, but because the spouse is moving, right? Person says, I'm just going to move to the city. I don't have a job. But I was like, I've always been able to find a job. You know what I haven't been able to find? A man. So I'm going to go find one there. And even though I haven't found my husband yet, I think I'm pretty close. Like I found a good one, a real good one that I like.
So out of the 200, you were able to zone in on, say, 5 and then picked one or whatever? Is this kind of the funnel we're talking about?
I think you're going to make me say controversial things that get me canceled, but it is what it is. I would say like I'm a California 5, but I'm like a Dallas 7, like, because I'm not competing with a bunch of porn stars and influencers, right? Yeah. Wow. So I feel like the prom queen for the first time in my life. Mind you, I was the girl that didn't get asked to prom in high school. So it's been really refreshing. And I will say, for the first time in my life, I enjoy dating. I enjoy having my doors open for me. I enjoy that when you get dinner in Dallas, when you come to Texas and you get dinner, it doesn't matter what the dynamic is. This has happened in business meetings as well. They always hand the bill to the man. They don't even fake the funk. In California, they'll slide it in the middle, like, don't know who's going to take it.
In my culture, the man always pays. And it's just like a safety, security, I'm a man thing. Again, to each their own, but I've always paid. But that's nice. That's the chivalry that they have in Texas. So describe a Texas male versus a California male, and try not to get canceled as well.
I will say this, because I'm trying to convince, if there is a woman who is in whatever city she's in, especially if it's a major metropolitan city in a blue state, if you're frustrated with the dating, come to Texas. At least come to Dallas. I can't speak for all of Texas. I can only speak for Dallas because it's the only place I've dated. Come to Dallas. It's booming. But I will say there are pros and cons to both cultures. The men in California, and I'm oversimplifying here, so again, don't come at me with the pitchforks, but the men in California kind of wait for the women to lead, because that's what they're told that they have to do. So men do not open doors. And when you confront them about this, they'll say, well, I tried to open a woman's door one time and she told me that she could open it herself. Okay, bro, like, I don't know what to say to you. Secondly, the lack of commitment. Because of the financial constraints of living in Southern California, because cost of living is so high, men are not able to afford to own their own home. In Texas, almost every single man I've dated owns his own home and or own some type of real estate. So when you have a man who's single and living in a home, where does his head go? Because he's sharing an apartment in Los Angeles with 5 other dudes. Do you think he's thinking about a wife and kids? No. So the financial implications absolutely impact the cultural value of creating a family. So I want to honor that, because I know that living in Southern California, it's not as easy to own a home the way that it's a little bit more affordable in Texas, although we Californians are ruining that for Dallasites as well.
I hear Dallas is getting more expensive as well. I have some friends nearby. One recently got divorced, so I completely agree. It's more like they're worried about splitting the bill with you versus building some some stability or some foundation. It's not easy to be in California. You're competing against Hollywood. You're competing against tech. You're competing against pretty much everything that goes on in California. And then there's so many distractions. The family dynamic, I would say, in California is not the best dynamic for traditional family or traditional upbringings or the American traditional upbringing. And there are a lot of people that share, like you, to your point, roommates and it's very expensive. What are some of the setbacks though? I know there's positive gains. For example, California is the worst state to have a business in, and in fact, very recently, someone put up a bill that says if, as a business owner, you contact your employee after hours, you're going to get fined, and the first fine is like $100 or something, and then it gets really heavy. It's the worst state to do business in. Texas is a good state. Elon Musk moved from Fremont. Other people have moved. What are the advantages for businesses in Texas, and obviously some disadvantages that you've seen?
I don't want to say correct you, but I do want to push back a little bit, right? Because there is this sentiment that businesses need to pull out of California. I don't know the numbers for Tesla, but we'll use Tesla as an example. I would almost put money that despite moving their headquarters to Austin, Texas, Tesla's getting significantly more revenue from the California market than the Texas market. And you cannot deny that California, if it was its own country, is a global market. There's no denying that. And there are several reasons for that. One, that because it's coastal, you got the ports. Yes. So from a taxation perspective, absolutely, it is frustrating to be a business in California. And if your business is so small that you're going to be state specific only, then sure, move to the Texas market, go for it. But national business across North America or expand into the global market, to not be in the California market, you're completely amputating your potential for growth. And I have to have this conversation with some business owners sometimes because there's pushback against California. It is a global market. You just said it, right? You got Hollywood, billionaires, tech, billionaires. You have a lot of big, deep pockets. If you're negating that market, I think that you're not positioning yourself to scale for growth. If you're trying to start a smaller brand or start out as a startup, yes, Texas is more friendly, but I do want to say that our property taxes here, if you're a real estate owner or an investor such as myself, they are triple California's taxes.
Triple.
Gets their taxes. People think that Texas doesn't. No, you're going to pay your taxes. You're just not doing it from your income. You're not doing it from your business. You're not doing it from your revenue. You are doing it through your real estate ownership.
You guys also have a little bit, well, not a little bit, but cheaper property values, which kind of almost balances out in some way. Not 1-to-1, but you could get still, I don't know about Dallas area anymore, but a $600,000 home is possible, would you say? Or is that kind of like...
I just found a $233,000 property off the beach, and I was like, guys, Galveston's where it's at. Please don't buy it all up and raise the prices there because the locals don't deserve that. I hope they implement some laws to prevent us Californians. But Galveston, I'm looking at that market right now because it's beautiful. The mosquitoes ate me alive. I don't know if you could see this. It's not acne on my face. It's a bunch of mosquito bites. The skeeters done got me. But I found a property that's being built out, new build in the 240s is what we're looking at. So I mean, I think that there definitely $600,000 is feasible, and that's why Californians can sell their home in California and then come out here and buy 2 homes. But the problem is that again is raising the property value and taxes for the locals who are really under constraints. And I'm mindful of that entirely. But my pushback to anyone who gives me a hard time, I'm like, okay, you guys are complaining that we Americans are coming into this state. Do you understand that we've been competing in the California market with non-Americans coming into our state and buying our real estate? But nobody wants to talk about that. Let's just talk about the Americans moving into another American state. Like, no. I hope that Texas enacts laws that prevent what has happened in California.
The labor market. And to your point, getting back to like why I think California is such a bad state to start a business is all the rules and the taxations for employment. That's what makes it really challenging. Also entitlement from employees. You know, you got these corporations that provide everything to an employee, from food to spas and this and that. And the small business can't really compete offering a 5-star chef. So you're competing, and now you're inflating your own payrolls just to keep up. And then the employment laws are just really through the roof in fairness. The same way I think Texas landlord laws are more manageable versus California landlord laws. As someone that has properties in the San Francisco area, it's a nightmare. I have a property that I'm considering selling that has a great renter, and I'm worried if I can sell my own property and if it's going to be a legal thing. You know what I mean? It's just mind blowing. But Texas, yeah. What are some of the downsides? I mean, you could get great affordable housing there. You could get great great tax savings in terms of no state income tax and so forth. But what are some of the downsides you've seen coming from California, or maybe you miss, to Texas? Or is there nothing? Like, you're like, hey, I have zero regrets. I met a man. I'm happy. I got my bill paid for at dinner. What do we have?
When we look from a business perspective, first of all, the only regret I have about moving to Texas is that I didn't do it sooner. I really love it here, and for the most part, I have been welcomed with open arms, because a lot of the values and ideologies that I hold are in alignment with Texas values and ideology. So I think that when you kind of step forward saying, hey, I am from, for the record, I'm not from LA. Ella from LA sounds easy and people like to say, but I'm not from LA. I'm from Orange County. And if you're from Southern California, you know the distinction between the two. And so we're almost anti-LA, if you will, in some of our mentalities. And I think that, that definitely helps me assimilating into Dallas, Texas. I will say that it moves a lot slower. And so my let's get it, let's go for it, I'm hungry, let's go for the kill kind of attitude that I have, that is very welcomed in a city like New York, where I love New York. I thrive in New York. I love working with people on the East Coast. And that type of mentality isn't always the best when you approach. So I've had to learn to really own in on my EQ and soft skills of, you got to wine and dine her before you ask her to lay in bed with you, right? And from a business perspective, that means we're going to move slowly. We need to make sure that this is a fit, that this is a cultural fit. Let's have conversations. Let's vet it out. I'm used to more hustle and bustle. Let's go. Time is money. And that doesn't come across in the best light in a market like Texas. And so I've had to slow myself down, but I think I needed that a little bit. I think I could use a little slowing down. And when it's time to ramp up, I'm ready to go.
Now, to your point, Orange County is more of a conservative California area, or was, I think, up until the last couple of years. Yeah, that's great. And I think it makes sense. You want to live where you're going to feel comfortable, and whether there's no wrong or right, whether it's here in, say California, or whether it's there, it's where you feel you fit in, and you could wake up and smile, right? And have 200 plus people on Bumble that you match with versus only like 10. I mean, what's that? But let's talk about eavesdropping on success. You have, or Eavesdrop with Ella, a podcast that you've launched. You've done quite a few different things here, and it's very interesting. You're like that Dos Equis commercial where the most interesting man, you're the most interesting woman. Why the podcast? I know why I started one, for fun. Why did you start yours?
Conversation that I had in my living room, and my friend just clicked record. She was like, we need these kind of conversations being had visible for people to enjoy and or learn from. I will say that it's transcended a little bit, or transitioned a bit, because originally it was supposed to just me talking to ordinary people about their extraordinary lives, right? And that was kind of the premise. But because of my own personal pursuits of success and being so blessed enough being from Southern California, as I've mentioned, with my business background and just access to very successful people, something that I noticed is that a lot of times when we're on the pursuit of financial success, it is coming at the detriment of another area of success. So you'll have someone who's a very successful surgeon, but they are obese because they've completely negated their physical health. Well, what good are all the accolades that you have and the boards that you passed and all of these great things that you're doing in your career, and you're bringing home over $1 million a year, but your physical health is in complete shambles because you've completely neglected the importance of taking care of your physical body by sleep, drinking water, getting rest, and eating well and moving. And so as I started working with a lot more successful people, I was like, all right, I'm on this path of executive, leadership, but the executives I'm working with are not they're kind of spiritually bankrupt.
Right.
And I don't know if that's exactly what I want. Furthermore, in December 2022, I had a very painful wake-up call, which is we are all going to die. All of us, we are going to die. And I had 4 surgeries, almost emergency, not exactly emergency, thank God. Emergency surgery is awful, and if you can avoid it, please do. But just about an emergency surgery, I think I had like 2-week heads up. And my entire life went on hold. I was in bed rest for 2 months, and then I was in physical therapy for 3 months, and I didn't work for nearly a year. And
Wow.
I will tell you that, through the grace of God and the blessings and hard work and all of this stuff, I had the best care money could buy. I was at Cedars-Sinai Hospital, one of the best hospitals in the world. I had 12 surgeons. I had a surgeon that flew in from Israel. He was a badass. And but I'll tell you this, what did any of that matter as I'm in pain, I can't work, and I have nobody next to me by my side? What good is any of that? What good is your success if your children don't want to talk to you when they're older because they can't stand you because you weren't there for them? And so I created what I call the Steph philosophy. And it's about creating success and balance beyond the finance, but also including financial, because a lot of people who are spiritually successful have no financial acumen. So Steph is really the premise of my podcast. Let's talk about success from a spiritual, emotional, financial, and physical realm. And what are we doing to make sure that any success for which we are striving is not coming at the detriment of another?
I love that. And to you, you've kind of defined it, but would you put success spiritually above success financially every time, or it has to be a 50-50, or?
Which is, again, ideal and not feasible, right? It'd be 25, 25, 25, 25. The way, like, if you know that you're evened out, that's just not how it works. I will say, because I was staring, I really had this, like, I'll say out of body experience, but just this existential experience of staring at the foot of my hospital bed, listening to the beeping noise. I'm tied up. I got all these wires and everything. It was just awful, right? Just horrific. And I was given a diagnosis that a lot of other people who are in the same position, they're not getting, which is you will get better, you will get treatment, you will get help, you will be good again. But when you're older, because we all see the end of the road, whether we like it or not. When you're older, you don't always get that. Sometimes this is the end, right? What do you want in those final moments? All the money in the world. Because I remember thinking, like, the money in my bank account doesn't effing matter right now. And while I'm grateful that I have amazing healthcare, and while I'm grateful that I am in an amazing hospital, and I had a chef, you talked about that Google chef earlier, I had the best meals anyone could ever hope to have in a hospital. Okay. I was where all the celebrities go when they get their plastic surgery. Okay. It didn't matter. I was alone. I was in pain. I was scared. And so what good is having financial money in the bank if you don't have amazing memories with the people you love in your memory bank. And so I would say, ironically, that this is why we see that people who are in impoverished impoverished countries, third world countries, they're able to find a level of happiness that the successful people of America are dying to figure out. Money, it's easy to say, okay, when I get money, I'll be happy, I'll get money. But what really is painful is when you have the money, and you have the accolades, and you're still not happy, and now you no longer have that excuse of the money.
It's actually what I call an amplified misery, because you have the money, everything is amplified, and you're just even more miserable. And I've seen it happen with people that have lots of money all the time. What have you learned from hosting your podcast? Any big things from these guests that you've had on? Like maybe you could mention a couple of things that were like eye-opening to you.
Oh gosh, let me think. There's an episode that I just re-listened to for the first time. I didn't let myself listen to it, and I was fighting not to cry. But there was an episode with a man named Ryan. So you could just search and look Ryan. There are two Ryans. He's the earlier Ryan. There's Ryan Higgins of Casa and then Ryan Lanier. But Ryan Lanier's story was so beautiful because he was told he would never walk again. And I think that whether, again, when we talk about success, whether it's someone's physical success because they have an incredible body and they've made this fitness or whatever it is, whatever that success is, out of all of that success, some type of failure or pain was found. And I think what has been so beautiful for my podcast and what I've learned is that from pain can come purpose. Goes back to what I was saying earlier about finding your mission, finding your purpose. A lot of the times you can find that purpose in whatever it is that your pain was. And I think that finding the pain in your purpose can really help you get narrowed and focused on, all right, why am I here on this planet? And what can I do to make the world a better place? And I think that no matter who is successful, no matter what level of success they have, I don't care who you are, there is a tremendous amount of failure and setback that preceded that. We look at Michael Jordan and we talk about his accolades and him being the greatest of all time and all of his championships and his winning shots, but what he says is nobody talks about the 9,000 shots I missed to get here. But he says 9,000, so who am I to correct him? But I'm pretty sure it's closer to 12,000, but that's just my little calculation. So I think that if we can stop seeing failure as fatal, because it's not, right? Winston Churchill said that, one of my favorite quotes, success is not final and failure is not fatal. Just because you had success today does not mean it matters tomorrow. If Elon Musk, when we look, I love Elon, when we look at Tesla, I'm from Southern California, so we had the Roadsters, right? Tesla today looks nothing like those Roadsters.
One of our family friends had one of the first Roadsters out, and before Tesla even got big.
What
tiny.
color was it?
I'm gonna say it was a red or a white. I don't.
Yeah, they did a lot of that was one of their things. Like they did, the oranges and the pinks and the really bright blues. It's a beautiful car, right? I mean, it was really, really great. And he could have just rested on that laurel and Tesla would have been a very high end, an extremely expensive car, and there with the Maseratis and the Ferraris and all of that. But he had a vision and he wanted to scale. He wanted it to be accessible. He wants to make particular changes, for better or worse, depending on what side you are on, right, for the globe, for civilization. He didn't want just this beautiful roadster, which it was beautiful, and just so wonderfully engineered. But I knew a few of the engineers that worked on that car, so I'm a little biased there. But I will say that, you can't just look at a little bit of success, and you certainly cannot look at the failures and setbacks and assume that that's the final story. No.
Because he almost went bankrupt after launching that car and had to, put in his own money and really climb out of it, and he's done so, and he's done great. He's one of the best entrepreneurs, brilliant mind. One thing though, I'll tell you, as a billionaire, the one that I think aged the best is Jeff Bezos, whether you like him or not. This guy's walking around all buff, on yachts with his little button ups, with his wife taking pictures on the yacht, and trying to be a celebrity and this and that. But he looks great. Elon Musk, I think he needs to hit the gym. I'm not gonna.
There's that. And then I can't help but wonder, because again, the woman in me always wants to say, right, behind a very successful man is going to be a strong, successful woman. And a lot of times women are okay with kind of taking the back seat. But when we look at Jeff Bezos, he hasn't gone and impregnated 12 different women, right?
Yeah.
One person. And I'm not sure, and I shouldn't be speaking on Elon's marriage. Please don't come after me, Elon. I'm a huge fan. But, I'm not sure that Elon has found that type of partner, the way that we look at a Bill Gates, right? Whether you stay with that partner or not, but to have that one person, that North Star with whom you can bounce ideas off of, I think that is something that completely gets overlooked in business. The biggest business mistake you could ever make is marrying the wrong person. Right? We've seen it with Steven Spielberg. We've seen it with Bezos. We've seen it with Gates. Like a big financial mistake you're going to make is not making the wrong business deal. The wrong business deal is marrying the wrong person. And I think similarly, one of the greatest things you can do to elevate your financial status, especially if you're a man, and that's what you want to do, is aligning yourself with a strong woman who shares the mission and values that you do. We see that with Grant Cardone and Elena. There is no Grant without Elena. Right. And so when we look at these billionaires and we study them, I feel like we really, it's not underscored as much as it could be, that the partnership that comes with creating that type of empire is really, really important. I will also like to say that one of my dating things that I say is, I'm like, well, you're not a millionaire, I'm going to make you one. That's what we're going to do. You date me, I'm going to build you up. This is how I approach it. And if that scares you, then we're probably not going to be the great part. I'm not the right partner for you.
Absolutely agree. I think if you're dating or you're getting especially married, marriage is like a business, and you got to be ultimately aligned with vision where you both want to be in 10, 5, 20 years, whatever it is. And if you're both not there, or if one wants to be reading books inside while one wants to be on a yacht getting a tan, this isn't kind of the same trajectory that you're going to, agree on. So yeah, definitely. Dating's not easy, especially today with all the distractions, the apps, people sliding in your DMs. I mean, it's not easy, but if you do find a partner, and that goes for anyone listening out there, you got to find a partner that shares your values. And that's really, I think, the biggest one, that wants to see the same direction. You could find someone that doesn't want to have children, but if you do, where's that going? Or you could find someone that's comfortable in a 2-bedroom, but you want to live in a 9-bedroom. This is all different trajectories that you have to agree on early. And then if it doesn't meet that criteria, you got to move on. And that's why I think you had so many matches in Texas versus California, because they want to live on the couch and they want you to split half the bill. And you're like, wait a minute, I'm trying to buy houses. I'm trying to move. Charles Barkley said something recently about Galveston, is it? He said something about the water there or something like this. I don't know. It was really funny. You got to check out that clip, editor. If you see it, put it in. Final few questions here. Great podcast, by the way. Coffee or tea?
I mean, I would rather have hot water and lemon. And the people who add milk to their tea, I know this is more of a European thing. I've worked with a lot of Europeans, add the milk to the. No, coffee is the reason why I get out of bed in the morning. Like some people say it's kids or it's business. No, coffee is why I get out of bed in the morning.
I never even knew people added milk to tea until I went to a very wealthy person's house when I was like 14, and I saw it happen. I thought they ruined the tea because I was drinking the black tea. They looked at me like I haven't been around, which is true. All right. How do you unwind with so much going on? What's your go-to? I'm sure it's stronger than coffee.
I will say, because of my background in alcohol marketing, I'm really against unwinding with alcohol. I think a lot of people assume that's I actually feel the opposite. And especially when I've spent all day staring at an alcohol label and arguing about whether we should make it gold or silver, I don't have a lot of tolerance for those type of arguments, but I have to sit in them a lot of times. The last thing I want to do is pour a bottle. I'm like, I hate alcohol today. Get out of my house. Get out of my face. Frankly, my favorite way to unwind, and this is where I'm so grateful for the partner that I found, because his is similar. I love going on walks. I love long walks. And I know that sounds silly, but if you do a little bit of research on EMDR, which is what I'm kind of doing with my eyes here, shifting back and forth, there is so many meditative benefits and then also physical benefits, the vitamin D, the walking. So a lot of people have to deal with the fact that I will take calls on walks, and that is not always looked upon, but I'm like, no, 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 this is helping regulate my emotional state, helping me process things that I need to do and put together, and then helping me prioritize, all right, what's next? So I'm really big on the physical exercise, but also just the meditative state that comes with the pace of a nice walk. And as far as cocktails go, because I do love cocktails.
Yeah, I was just gonna ask, like,
I'm a
what is your go-to drink? You have to have something.
My go-to drink now that I live in Texas is margaritas. I never loved margaritas till I moved here, but they're everywhere here, and it's like the state cocktail. So I've done a lot of margaritas, but I love vodka water. So vodka with flat water, not soda water, flat water. I know that's really funky, but I think it just tastes really nice. It's kind of like a martini, but with watered down ice of whiskey and ginger. So I am a Jameson girl. It's one of the few brands I'll admit to having worked for because I just love them so much. I can't hide my love for them. So I love like a ginger beer and Jameson with lime, or really any bourbon with ginger beer specifically. I love bourbon and Jameson. Jameson's the only Irish whiskey I'll touch. No offense.
All right. And then final question. You could go back in time and give yourself one piece of advice, kind of like a Back to the Future thing. What would that be?
I mean, I'm really happy with the trajectory that I'm doing. Again, everything happens for a reason, and even if you don't see it, it's serving you. So just, I am such a gut person. I would also say, like, invest in Bitcoin sooner.
Yeah. Buy Bitcoin.
2012, I had the opportunity, and I turned it down, and boy, do I regret that a little bit. It's okay. Everything happens for a reason. We all have our own path.
But I bet you don't feel as bad as the two people I'll mention. One who has like a Bitcoin wallet with like 250 million in it, and he doesn't know the password, and he has one guess left. And then which means if he doesn't get it, it'll erase because it's the 10th guess. Mm-hmm. And then the other one, I think someone tipped a pizza driver in Bitcoin, like 100 Bitcoin for a pizza. I don't know if it's a true story or not, but that pizza's worth, through the roof now. So yeah, I mean, cryptocurrency. I don't know. Well, Ella, thank you so much for coming on the Ideal Hour. We're going to link all of your info below, your Instagram, Ella, your Bella. Love it. We'll link that as well. Guys, girls, if you want to follow, please do so. Ella, if you need marketing advice on alcohol and how she mixes her cocktails and all this and what walks she goes on to feel decompressed, Ella has it covered. So I appreciate you coming on, sharing your story. I'm glad you found someone in Texas. This is a good move for you, good real estate market, and it's a good time to jump in on it, in my opinion. And maybe, one day Elon Musk will listen to this podcast and get his body shape together, and then we'll figure out why he has 13 baby mamas, because this is that's a lot. That's a lot.
I don't have enough degrees of separation from Elon, so I just want to say I'm a fan, Elon. I'm a fan. I'm a fan. You just need one strong woman, is all I'm saying. I'm not saying it needs to be me, but you just need one strong woman. I'm very happily almost with someone married. We'll see. But Simon, thank you just so very much for the opportunity. I did not expect to talk about my love life on here, and I think I kind of derailed it a little bit. So I appreciate you reeling it in, and
no
thank you
pressure.
for instigating amazing conversations.
No pressure. The ring should be coming. This is all set up. You know what I mean? I was sent here by your parents to ask that question. That was the whole point of this. Wink, wink. But no, I appreciate it, and you were great, and you're welcome back anytime. Anything you need, you know how to reach us, and wonderful story. So God bless you, and we'll be in touch.